I still aboard Megan's ship? It feels odd. What is this place? Where am I? I can feel something moving closer. Watching.
Empress Emily Caldwin. I am a friend of your father's from the bad old days. I never expected us to meet. I watched your mother die at the hands of schemers who wanted your little empire. Then you were rescued by a man in a strange mask. I thought that was the end of the excitement. But someone yanked the rug from under your feet. You've lost your throne and your father. And I promise, Delilah won't just give them back. So, what are you prepared to do about it? Your Imperial Majesty? And are you clever enough to do it without spilling a river of blood? I asked Corvo those questions 15 years ago. This is the moment that changed him. Now it's your turn.
Accept the Outsider's Mark, or you can reject and do No Powers mode. No Powers mode isn't exactly the epitome of what I would call fun, but it is an interesting challenge. And when you tell the Outsider that you don't want his mark to his face, he makes this really funny reaction in response. He is really surprised that somebody would reject the mark. Feel free to look up that scene on YouTube of rejecting the mark, but I'll accept it for now because I want the game to be fun.
It burns from the inside. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something. All the stories, they're true.
Far Reach. This is Emily's version of Corvo's Blink. Okay, and I think you'll really like it. Look, upgrading this power changes some of its basic functionality. That is the main difference from the power menu in comparison to Dishonored 1. It's not just like Blink level 1 and Blink level 2. There's now stuff like time stop Blink, like how Dad has. I'm using Blink as an example, but let's see if I can bring up the power menu here. Far Reach, you can upgrade it with runes to do different functions instead of just being like, oh, it reaches further. You can, if you are falling, time is briefly slowed as you aim, pull objects, which is going to be lots of fun, and pull enemies, which is very, very fun. I'm excited to show that off. But there's also plenty of other powers that I'll get into later. For now, Blink is nothing more than just a traversal tool. Or Blink.
Incredible.
Far Reach! Ah! I don't want to get the names confused.
This is how I'm going to save my father and reclaim the throne.
I'm now going to sit here and point out something. Dishonored 1, you meet the Outsider. He is the Outsider. He looks a little different in this game, but his visual design is mostly unchanged. However, he is voiced by someone else. They added kind of an annoying filter to his voice, and he has obsessive teleportation syndrome. That's the only word I can think for it. He teleports around in cutscenes incredibly unnecessarily and constantly. It's distracting.
It's been a long while, but you've got my interest again. How the years pass and the bodies fall. Did you know that there are only 8 like you in the world, bearing my mark?
I like that his voice sounds a little younger, because they go into more lore of the Outsider in this game. And I'm not entirely against his voice having a filter. I mean, he is otherworldly.
Corvo mentioned being here once.
But the filter is more distracting than anything. And I'm going to mention this bit of what I would like to call over-familiar dialogue writing. Never once in this entire encounter with the Outsider does he state that his name is the Outsider. You're just kind of expected to know that, which is weird because Emily's never met him. Corvo's met him, but Emily just thinks of him as a myth? Does she know that the person she's looking at is the outsider? I mean, there are drawings of him, but still. I would say that they kind of dropped the ball there. Make sure that if you're establishing something, even in the second game in a series, you don't get over familiar with what you think the player already knows. Especially when it's contextually important, like Emily not knowing who he is.
Know you. Do you remember? It's been so long, and you've been through so much. Even as an echo of myself, it's good to know you're there.
Mother? You're here, but you're not here. In my hand, but somewhere else.
Only the last of my essence, with you for a while. If only I could reach across this great expanse and take you into my arms. But I have this to offer. My gift and my curse. Summon me to your hand, and I will guide you when I can.
Yes, the heart. Oh, whoops, accidentally pressed the wrong button. The heart from last game, available to Emily now. It used to be for Corvo. And it functions the same. Detects runes and tells you secrets about things that you pointed at.
There are no stars in the sky here. There isn't a sky. You shouldn't be here. No one should.
I'm also going to point out that the Void, along with the Outsider, has gone through a visual redesign. Although, in the Void's case, it is incredibly more drastic. The Void went from a kind of floating space made up of parts of the real-world environment to... I guess it's much visually darker, as in less bright, and it's made of this odd, jagged slate stone. I'm not against it, but I think it becomes less interesting when it's just made of rocks and darkness. In my humble opinion. There were some really cool things that the Void did in Dishonored 1. Like, specifically at the very beginning of the Dowd DLC series, the Void was made up of parts of Dunwall Tower that had, meshed and transformed to create a pathway for him. In this game, you don't really get to see buildings in the Void anymore. It's kind of entirely rocks, and it's very dark. I don't want to say that it is objectively worse, but I do want to say is that Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2 have very different tones that the Void gives off when you're inside of it.
In thousands of years, few have seen this place. 3 were empresses.
Oh, and I should mention, if you play as Corvo, you know how Corvo gets the mark sucked out of his hand by Delilah at the beginning? The Outsider shows up here and he goes, hey, you got your mark taken, I'll give it back. Again, another reason why playing as Corvo, the non-canon route, just kind of makes less sense in the story. Now you can make a lock-on of runes, and even when you put the heart away, it still highlights where it is. But it can only be done one at a time. A very welcome change.
Who is Delilah really? How could she? I don't understand.
There's no one quite like Delilah. I watched her pull herself up from blood and filth, until she was in a position to steal from the wisest scholars in the Empire. Survival and ambition, art and magic, with a cunning that makes fawning sycophants of those around her. all of it leading to what you saw at Dunwall Tower. Delilah's playing the long game. She took all the abuse the world could deal out, and now she has a crown. But I'll let you in on a secret. She's got her eyes set on a much greater prize.
When I was 10 years old, bored with my lessons, I dreamed about sword fighting and sailing the ocean. Now I'm realizing that the world is stranger than I ever imagined. Everything I know has been turned on its head, but I'm dealing with it the best I can. When you look at the great jeweled map at Dunwall Tower, Karnaca is the southernmost port in the Empire. A fat, red ruby. That's how I always thought of it. Up close, the city smells like the ocean and strange spices. Up close, it's a tangled story of blood and ambition. The birthplace of my father. Megan Foster is a stranger, but there's something that makes me want to trust her, despite her guarded disposition. She got me out of Dunwall, and I need answers. Delilah and the Duke made me look like a murderer, using the Crown Killer to butcher my political adversaries. They took what was mine, and I'm gonna get it back.
Bone charms. They return from the first game. And let's see one. Oh, it showed me the tutorial instead of bringing up the power menu. But yeah, little passive benefits. Let me equip the 2 that they give you at the beginning of the game. Bullet packs have a slight chance of containing +1 bullet. And sometimes supernatural powers could... Oh, that's a good one! That's once again, they're randomized in their location and dispersion. Although, since there are 3 types of bone charms that I'll get into later, they're usually randomized within their categories, but the location of them are the same. Wyman, by now you must have heard about the coup in Dunwall. Don't worry, I'm safe. Hiding away. For now, I need to stay hidden and act alone. Trust me. That's a letter that Emily wrote to Wyman, who I think was mentioned earlier. Maybe some kind of love interest, but it's not really explored. And there's Samuel's carving. This game has a little souvenir system. If you collect these little collectibles in the individual missions, they show up in your room at the beginning of every mission. It's fun. And a travel log. New Year, 1852 will be less boring than 1851. Alright. There we go. That time of year again, the anniversary of my mother's death. There's no real time for reflection. It's all security protocols, menus, guest lists, and it's impossible to slip out at night. I feel like a caged bird. They've already got me memorizing this year's speech. It's endless. Would it be so terrible if I just said what I remember about her? That wink she gave me, even as she was scolding me after I was caught climbing the statue of my grandfather? The sound of her footsteps as she paced at night? The time we shared a cabin on a boat trip to Driscoll? Or the time she agreed to let Corvo teach me to fish, but then she had to pull the hook from my arm? And that would be a speech. My father is lost, turned to stone by Delilah. Those words don't even seem real. Witchcraft. Something I never would have believed possible. So I guess Corvo never told her that he had the outsider's mark? I guess so. I don't know if it's outright stated. All I know is she used magic to take my throne, aided by that weasel Duca Bell. Even Ramsay, captain of the city watch, planting in everyone's mind the idea that my father and I could be responsible for those monstrous killings. I'm not in a trusting mood, but Megan Foster says she knows Anton Sokolov, our old royal physician, and she helped me escape the coup. We're sailing for Serkonos. My Dunwall, my home, is no longer safe for me. But I never really was safe. I never really will be. The sooner I get that through my skull, the better. This time it wasn't a dream. I've read about the Void and the Outsider, imagined them. Now I've seen these wonders for myself. Strange doesn't begin to cover it. The Outsider has terrible eyes, black on black. He offered me something. I know these gifts come with a price, but how could I refuse? This power might give me the edge I need to defeat Delilah and Duke Bell. What price will I pay for his other gift? My mother's beloved voice, trapped in the strangest contraption. It is both comforting and chilling to be able to talk to her again, and yet it's not entirely the person I knew anymore. We've arrived at the southernmost tip of the Empire, strange fragrances all around. Salt, fish, spice. I don't know how to blend in here. I don't know what to eat or where to go, but this is where my father was born, so part of me belongs here too. And these are my people, or they were until my throne was stolen by Delilah. I'm coming for you, Delilah, with my new powers. All I need now is a plan. You get to write down a new travel log at the end of every mission. Alright. Hope you guys don't mind if I'm pausing to talk about things a lot. I don't mean the reading. I mean earlier in the level where I would stop and talk about the differences between the two games or how the Void changed art direction. I promise that that won't be this whole playthrough. It's just that we're at the very beginning, a lot of stuff is different right off the bat, and I want to go into it before I forget. There's lots to discuss, and I love discussing it, especially with, like, Michael and people in the comments. Oh, that was a nice fade in. Does it do that every load? I guess I never noticed before. Hey everyone, I'm back. This is a new recording session. I haven't been recording lately. What's the word for it? I took a break. A small hiatus, if you will. It's only been like a week. As you can see, I learned how to play guitar in that time. Oh, and I read this while I was setting up the recording. I never read this before. Turns out it's not like a book that's just lore, which I normally wouldn't read in a playthrough. This is like a diary, so I'm going to read it. I'm going to skim through it. Managed to get myself passage to a Morley aboard a decent ship, the Dreadful Whale it's called. Is that a mistake? Shouldn't it be the Dreadful Whale, like the sea beast? I didn't want to risk pointing something like that out to the captain, that Foster lady. Goodbye, Karnaka. I won't miss you. Breathing mine dust all day long or hearing the constant ramblings of Duke Bell over the street speakers. Morlayan food seems to suit Captain Foster. I spent the night on the deck with Megan and Anton, though he slept in a chair nearby, wrapped in a goat hair blanket that looks like it hasn't been washed since it was on the goat's back. Megan and I drank rum and whiskey, and then 28th, this is final entry. What a fool I am, trying to kiss Megan down in the engine room. She didn't even yell, just smiled a sad smile like you would at a child who still believes in night spirits. Tomorrow we'll reach Morley and I'll disappear as quietly as I can. I've decided to leave her my Sakarnan guitar as a souvenir and the only payment I can afford. Oh, wait, and there's another thing. What is it? Whoops, I noticed this before. This. Said I had the same voice as someone she knew once, a long while back. Off and on, I hear her playing the same old audiograph in her cabin, making me wonder if that's who she was talking about. Maybe I'm feeling jealous. Yeah. So that's this guy's guitar. Oh, and this is Emily's room. I think I cleared that up last time. It's not what you're used to living in a palace, but this is all the coin I could scrape up. Sokolov was working on this crossbow as a gift for you. If you need it modified, those shops can help with that as well. This explains the black market system. Nice. It's pretty nice. This is Emily's crossbow. If you play as Corvo, he like inherits his old one from the last game. Emily's is kind of funny shaped. It kind of, what does it look like? It reminds me of like a lute. What's the thing that Apollo invented? Pair the things that got busted up in Anton's room. Not until I bring him home. Shine of faith. Unblock the storage door. Something fell on the other side. Only need to sell the stuff locked up in there. Pay the port tax and look the other way fees to the Grand Guard bastards. She tried prying it open. So this is the ship, the Dreadful Whale. And this will be kind of the hub area for the whole game. I really like how it changes as you progress. And I'll make sure to show if anything in the ship like changes layout. But let's head to the main room.
Must be cursed. Daft old man, this is some shit. Back to that city. What would we have done in the old days? All sharp metal and shadows, we'd say. You're up. When you're ready to talk, I'll tell you what I know.
All right. You've explained part of it. But what were you and Sokolov doing here?
The old man loved Karnaca, but he'd caught wind of a conspiracy tied to the Crown Killer. He wanted to warn Corvo.
There were reports about tensions rising, corruption, street violence. I didn't give it much mind. Usually the local authorities resolve that sort of thing.
The new Duke has let things slide. But Sokolov concluded he might be the head of the conspiracy. He came in looking shocked, and if you've heard his after-dinner stories, you know that's unusual. We were going to set out for Dunwall, but something happened.
The Crown Killer.
Yes, the hatch ripped open and Sokolov screamed. All I caught was a glimpse of someone carrying him across the deck. I followed as long as I could, toward Addermeyer Institute. It's run by the alchemist Hypatia. Maybe the Duke is using a patient of hers, the Crown Killer.
Addermeyer. All right. I'll get inside. The Crown Killer has to be eliminated, and if the alchemist will cooperate, maybe I can learn something about what happened to Sokolov. Wish me luck.
If you need my luck, Sokolov's as good as dead. When you get done at the Institute, disable the watchtower. Once it's down, I'll bring the boat around. We'll take the skiff to the shore when you're ready.
Yeah, so that was the first of many mission briefings. This game has a good little briefing in this room before every mission, and I just love it to death. It's so cool! It gives this game, as opposed to like in Dishonored 1 where you felt like an assassin who was preparing to like do some dirty work, in this game it feels more like you're planning heists. And it's true because you're not so much of like working towards a great end goal as you are trying to unravel a mystery, which is, it's a nice change of pace, and it makes sense for a stealth game to progress into that. Now I'm gonna listen to all this lovely juicy dialogue by looking at things on this board.
So the Crown Killer was a tool of the Duke's coup. The murders had a calculated effect. Sokolov seems so much older now. It looks like the overland route to the Addermeyer Institute goes through the carriage station. This Dr. Hypatia, she seems to represent the good that's possible within the Empire. I don't know Duke Luca Abel, but Corvo served under Luca's father and said Theodanus was a good man. Delilah. My aunt, if that's really true. She has a twisted way of looking at the world. Mortimer Ramsay. The Duke couldn't have pulled off the coup without someone inside the City Watch.
I like the little detail that these aren't photographs, they're sketches. Sokolov drew them himself while he was putting together the conspiracy, because he's such a good artist. Oh, speaking of art.
Why is this here? It's Delilah.
Anyway, lots of fun stuff to poke around in at the Dreadful Whale. It's got such a nice environment, and it's the stuff, this Dishonored 2 just excels at environment, like decoration and aesthetics. I just can't get enough. I'm drinking this in. I'm slurping this in. It's friggin' delicious. Oh yeah, that's the health elixir, SNJ. It's short for Sokolov and Joplin, because Sokolov and Piero Joplin made the health elixir that cured the rat plague. And this is the new mana potion, Addermeyer solution. Oh, and these things. Wondered whether I have another book in me. Bloodflies are exotic insects. Unlike anything else found in Sarkonos, I suspect they originated on the Pandician continent. Bloodflies are attracted to rapid movement. Their nests are quite susceptible to fire. Last part of bloodflies' life cycle, they calm a great deal. Molt the wings. Each bloodfly lives a solitary existence. Very odd. Bloodflies are largely restricted to the south, preferring warmer climates, like certain aging natural philosophers. So this is Dishonored 2's iteration of what rats were for Dishonored 1. Rat Plague's over, but they still wanted that kind of element of the rat swarms that Dishonored 1 had, so they followed it up with these things called blood flies, and I actually really like them. Like, you don't deal with them like how you do with the rat swarms in Dishonored 1, because you would just avoid them, right? In this game, you can clear out their nests, and I'm so excited to show you, because it's like its own little mini game. That being said, there's a bit of value in there, so I'm going to bust this open. Oh, I got them all. Okay, normally it takes more than one swipe. There we go. That's coin in the bank. That's him investigating the coup.
I'll always miss my lessons with Anton Sokolov. He made so many clever devices during my mother's time.
Dearest Emily, or must I say, your Imperial Majesty, I have something that you and Corvo must hear at the first opportunity. It concerns the murders happening across the Empire, committed by this so-called Crown Killer. When I left Crystal years ago, I swore I'd never again take part in any further political matters. I've done my share of bad things, and some good, before and after the Rat Plague. But here in Karnaca, I've uncovered a terrible conspiracy against you. Here, at the bottom of the Empire, the cobblestones smell of death and corruption. I'm staying with an associate, Megan Foster, aboard her vessel, the Dreadful Whale. We'll leave for Dunwall in the morning, as soon as the tides are willing. I keep thinking of the way sweet Jessamine was stolen from you and your father, and I fear it might be your turn to face such turmoil. I know Corvo would protect you with his life, but please do not trust anyone.
There you are, old man. I was asked to pay you a visit.
Wait, what's wrong with you? Megan!
Off we go, Sokolov, to somewhere more private.